early in doing this.
No problem.
Okay, so
Scott, I just gotta say, you've got some fascinating hair going on right
I know it's a little early here, but okay, well, cool. So let's get started. Hang on just a second. Sorry, it's quite early. Um, okay, so
So I just, I'm in New York right now, and just been dealing with the power leftover hangover of Sandy. So I'm sitting in the hallway outside my office right now because we can't get in the room. So please excuse the randomness of my all that.
Yeah. Very stark background. Yeah.
now you guys had a chance to kind of look over some of those questions, right? Is that
Yep. Yep.
not that you guys even really need it? I know you can answer them probably right off the top of your head, but I think the way we'll structure this is we'll just ask you those questions, I think, and don't worry about like being, having perfect answers, because this can easily be edited later on and things like that. So we're really just looking to have kind of a conversation that we record with you guys. So
Do you envision each of us answering each question?
no, I think that you guys can kind of answer as, maybe I'll ask one, and whoever wants to take the lead can go ahead and take it, and people can fill in and all that. Same way that, just imagine that we're having a conversation, I guess.
That
Yeah.
sounds much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just jump in with whatever kind of speaks to you, and yeah.
So here, let me open these questions. Okay. So I guess, you know what? We'll just, and actually, Rich, do you have the questions open?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Do you mind just asking those so that I can kind of keep these off of my recording screen?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, I'll take.
Okay. So you can go ahead and lead this off then.
Yeah, so if you guys, obviously we've looked at your project and watched the video and poked around the website. But if you guys could just tell us, just how you guys came together briefly, what the name of your project is, where you guys are from, we can just start kind of from there.
Okay, I'm Ellison Carter and Catherine Alfredo. We both entered the same graduate program in the same year, so we've known each other for over 6 years now. And I'd say we both independently came into our own here in terms of finding out how excited we are about K through 12 education. We both had different paths, but we crossed through a National Science Foundation program called GK12 that Catherine can tell you a little more about because she was a fellow in that. But through that, we started doing some outreach activities together, and then that grew into this desire to try our own outreach activity venture, which is off-road science. And off-road science is what you see on the Dell Social Innovation page. That's what we named our social venture, and that's what we entered in the competition last year to try and get a chance to do our own project where we, ideally, sort of answering the question, what would we do if we won the grand prize? Ideally, we would expand across the U.S. and then expand across the globe and bring really awesome science activities to all kinds of kids, K through 8 primarily. So.
Yeah. And then a big part of what we do with our outreach here and why we developed it into the Dell Social Innovation Competition is that we feel like we take a little bit of a unique approach to it in that all of the activities that we run are really hands-on and they're not just demonstrations. And then especially in the science club that we run at one of the local middle schools, we challenge graduate students, graduate engineering students as well, to describe and explain their research and what they do in their engineering discipline to middle school girls through a hands-on activity. And so what we feel like we're doing is taking like a two-prong approach in the fact that we're trying to help grad students and especially scientists become better communicators while also having outreach with K through 12 students.
Why is that so important to you when you say that helping the science side be a better communicator and having these students, and you mentioned in particular girls, like why is that so important to you?
Well, I think, Ellis and I are both engineers, and even though there's a lot of women in engineering, it's still an underrepresented field with women. But as far as communication, scientists, we're never taught to communicate. We never have any kind of communication classes. And then you go to conferences and you hear your peers present, and they're presenting in monotone voices. They present like they're not excited in their work, and you want to just shake them and be like, "You're so excited, otherwise you wouldn't be in grad school looking at this every day for 7 years." So I think there's a really big breakdown with enthusiasm over your own work, and then also just being able to explain it to someone who's not in your little insular community. And being able to break down your work into language that, honestly, a sixth grader can understand, not only helps you then communicate your work to other people and the importance of it, and that's the breakdown in science in general, going out to the audiences, but then it also gives you a little bit more of appreciation on how your work can fit into the community. And, like I said, that's just something that as engineers, we're not expected to communicate well. And so it's kind of sad that we're not, because so much of what we do should be communicated to general audiences in order to better educate them and to better educate ourselves as to what impact our work is having.
And what happened? You have a world of engineers that are communicating powerfully. Let's say you've got a world of engineers who are, you know what, guys, I'm actually about to slide into an office, so I'm going to, Scott, I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a second so I can move into that.
No worries.
Awesome. That guy doing a Skype call in the hallway. Sorry, guys, hold on. Thanks, guys. Down doors, sorry. So, by the way, I'm at the offices of Fenton here in New York, the world's largest social good communications and PR firm. They're good enough to let me use their offices during this blackout. Hold on a second. A little light in here. All right. How's the lighting here, Scott? Are we good?
Yeah, looks good. You're looking great. It looks good. You're looking better than me, that's for sure. I'm a tiny little guy down here. It's small enough that you can't tell that I look crazy.
So what I was about to ask, actually, and I'm super curious, right? So let's say you have a world of these engineers who are amazing communicators, and they take what they do and they deliver it in a way that anyone can understand, and I assume you're hoping that they can apply it and learn and grow or spark some other path of learning or discovery for themselves. So, but let's say you have that world and they are these amazing communicators. What becomes possible? What happens that we couldn't have had before this program, was in existence, before off-road science was present?
Well, I think, one of the driving forces behind being an environmental engineer, which both of us, that's what our graduate program is in, is a need to improve public health. Mm-hmm. And so I would say a lot of what our activities are rooted in and what's different from a lot of other hands-on engineering and science learning activities is that we try and root ours in the natural world to teach students about what it is in their natural world that causes public health problems. So in this ideal world where we have these fully equipped engineers who can go out and solve these problems, the problems we want to solve are the problems of waterborne diseases, the problems of pollution indoors and outdoors, and things that make millions and even billions of people sick around the world. That's why we wanted to take it from Austin across the U.S. into countries where there are people who, if they had the knowledge, they could become the professionals that work in their own societies to solve the problems at a local level. So in this perfect world, we'd be seeing not NGOs being required to go abroad and solve these problems of primarily water and air quality related illnesses, but actually equipping the people who live there locally to do it themselves.
And then I also think, if you ask a middle schooler what an engineer is, a lot of them will still tell you like a train conductor. And so I think just educating them to what an engineer is will open up the field for more students to go into it, minorities and women, so that it becomes a more diverse field. I think there was a study that came out a year or so ago that said as early as second grade when girls start saying math is for boys. I mean, that's horrible. And so if in a relaxed environment with these design challenges that we do in our hands-on outreach, we can give girls especially the encouragement and the confidence to be able to solve some of these problems that we give them. You know, it could open them up to then saying, well, maybe math isn't just for boys. Maybe it can be for me.
What, you know, it's funny. This is the second time you guys have mentioned the girls in this field. What, and the diversity factor. What changes by having more women and more minorities in the field of engineering? Is there some approach that you think isn't, or line of thought that you think is important to bring in? Why is that so important to you?
I actually don't know that it's as much about what would be different, because frankly, on a fundamental basis, if everyone has the same engineering training, I think you're more likely to see more diversity just from person to person than you are between men and women. And I'm sure that there are people who would dispute me on that. I'm not as well grounded in the research on whether there's an actual difference. I think what's more important is that girls at a young age envision themselves being just as many things as boys do. I think entering college, where both Catherine and I are teaching assistants, we definitely interact with young women who are choosing career paths because they think they can't do engineering. They drop out of engineering because they're like, I don't think I can actually hack it. And they're doing really well relative to their peers. They just don't feel like they are. And I think the message that we send to girls to at least try what it is they are interested in, that's more important to me right now than whether or not their involvement in the field makes for a much bigger difference in how problems get solved.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, at least for me, I can see just the difference in, say, my undergraduate, where I didn't have any female faculty. Like, I didn't even see a female engineer in my undergrad. And then I came here to UT, and we have a very diverse faculty. And I don't know, to me, that just made a difference. Having someone who's a female who made it through engineering and now is a professor makes me feel a little bit more confident about the path that I'm taking. And so it's just nice to see I don't know, it's just nice to see that there are other people like you out there who have made it and decided to stick with the field, and you're not just a lone wolf in the department.
So you mentioned coming over to UT and experiencing that. What was the moment when, did you have were you like building one of those volcanoes when you were in like elementary school and you got all excited about like science and engineering, or like what was that moment for you? Like I look back and I remember that. Like I remember when we had like the science fairs and I would do like was it baking soda and you bake like the volcano and stuff. But what was that moment for you guys? I mean, was there like a distinct like, oh my god, I love this, or how did it kind of come about for each of you?
I don't know. I was really into science and art all throughout elementary school. In the summer, I would go to art camp. I would like go to art. I don't know what it was. I guess it was kind of like classes at the Brooklyn Museum, or I was able to get into this 1-week program at the aquarium, at the New York Aquarium, where I like fed walruses. It was the most amazing thing ever. And then as soon as I could, I became a docent at the aquarium. And so I really liked science all my life, and I really liked art. And it was just one of those things when I didn't know what an engineer was until I got to college, and I kind of just picked it as well, because I was just like, oh, it's something I could be creative in. And like luckily it worked out, because I ended up getting to environmental engineering eventually, where I think I have found a niche that I like, and a discipline that I agree with. But it evolved entirely over the course of growing up, but there was always that interest in science projects. I mean, my brother and I have an older brother, and we used to do science fair projects, and he used to just be like, okay, well, you just pick whatever project you want to do, and I'll just follow whatever you do. And I was 3 years younger, and so I was always dictating what the science project was when I was in like 3rd grade, and he was in 6th, and he was like, I don't really care. Just tell me what to do, and I'll do a project as well. And so I don't know, I just always liked that, like doing little research projects.
I guess for me, I was homeschooled in elementary, or lower elementary, up through 3rd grade. And so my mother, I would attribute a lot of the credit to her for, we just did experiments all the time, and most of them were outdoors, going and collecting things, going and, mostly I would say, now looking back, it's like ecology type experiments. That was those are my first memories of learning, and that's how I wanted learning to always be. And then I think when I got into middle school, I got to go do some really cool experiment-driven like trips. My parents, for whatever reason, took us along with a bunch of grad students to Colorado on family vacation, um, and we got to dig into trees and become dendrochronologists for a day, and we got to go explore not tide pools, stream ecology, and we got to look at worms under a microscope. That was in about 7th grade, and that's probably when I decided I wanted to be a graduate student and decided that I wanted to do science for the rest of my life. I didn't actually come to engineering until after college, but I mean, I think for both of us, it's maybe not one seminal moment, but rather it's just our past are littered with experiences where we really had a great time doing something experimental, and we want to bring the same thing to kids because we think that that's really important.
That's great. So, how did you guys hear about the Dell Social Innovation Challenge, and why did you apply?
I actually entered it twice before, or we entered it once before, but when I first came to UT, within the first year I had heard about it, because I think it was its first year in 2006 or 7, first or second year. But in any case, I heard about it through some older folks in our department, and we entered a water sanitation hygiene education program and made it to like a presentation round. It was way different than it is now. I don't think we would have made it that far at all, but we made it to a presentation round and got to see some of the winning presentations, and I thought it was just a really cool competition because it attracted all kinds of ideas. And then we didn't enter anything for a couple of years, and then Catherine and I entered something similar but much more scaled down and not fully fleshed out as off-road science the year prior to this past year. And so I don't know, I think we've just found it to be a nice outlet because it's a place where, frankly, unfundable ideas in science can be explored, mature, and not leave science behind. So it's a really cool competition. It's hard to find opportunities like that as a scientist, at least. I mean, I think these exist in lots of other outlets maybe that I don't know about, but for us it's unique in that you can bring in your desire to do social good and combine it with the research kind of foundation that we love, and not fear that your idea will not be funded because it's more driven by the social good than it is by the research outcome.
Yeah, and then this year it was really nice how it was set up because it really pushed us to how the competition was set up. Really pushed us to flesh out all of our ideas, especially like who pays and all those kinds of questions that we didn't really think about last year. It was nice to go through it and really think about it. And it's like, is this really even possible if we do win? And how conceivable it is, and really push ourselves to morph our initial idea into something that could be possible.
So, in a larger sense, has the Dell Social Innovation Challenge somehow changed what you guys see for off-road science, or even what you're going to go do next, or how has it impacted your path in general?
Well, we didn't win $50,000, so yeah, it impacted how our project unfolded. We won $5,000. That means we're in Austin doing what we wanted to do, which is totally awesome, but not quite the scale. We're both coming up, Catherine a little sooner than me, but we're both coming up on the end of our degree, and we sort of have jokingly an informal pact of meeting up again in 5 years or less. We don't. It's not likely that we'll end up in the same place in the next couple of years, but I think we're both passionate enough about this idea. I think it'll last our lifetimes. Yeah. Getting to see ourselves have to develop a plan that's actually tenable and has the backing and support of other people who have looked at it. Again, like we say, we want to transfer confidence to young girls to go do the things they want. I think entering this competition did give us at least enough confidence to think, well, we don't have such a shitty idea, or such a crappy idea that
You please one more.
sorry that we can't try again, or even, you know, in a couple years, maybe with some experience,
Mhm.
we'll revisit the idea and change it. You know, I think we're both open to the idea that we saw it change a lot from the year we entered and we didn't go far at all
Yeah.
to now. I think we could see it go far again, and it's the other really nice thing that maybe this is a tangent slightly, but it's really nice as a researcher to have something like this because you have to always involve broader impacts
Yeah.
into your research, and so we could see ourselves being leveraged in that way, hopefully by other people that would want to collaborate with us, as well as support our idea during the time when maybe it needs some help getting off the ground wherever we are next.
And especially, like, Ellison talked really at the beginning about how we got into this with the GK through 12 program. And I think, at least for me, I'm pretty sure for Ellison as well, just how that program was run and all the things that that professor who runs that program does. I know I'm taking all of that away, so if I end up at a university, I mean, all the outreach that's been instituted by this one professor here, I really see as a role model to do at an institution that I end up at. He has these lectures that he does, which Ellison and I do a lot of pre-lecture activities for, called Hot Science Cool Talks, where we take the talk is a renowned scientist comes and talks to an audience of basically K through graduate students about their research, and they're challenged again with this communication idea to present their research in a way that doesn't lose the young kids but also doesn't bore the grad students. And it's been fascinating to watch professionals do this. Before the lecture, there were all these pre-lecture activities where Ellison and I have been involved for 3 years now, where we take the lecture because we know what the lecture is going to be before it occurs. We take the lecture and we develop hands-on activities related to the lecture. So the last one was about water scarcity, and we did a whole bunch of activities related to water scarcity with tasting different salinities. We videotaped some people making water PSAs, and then we played them before the lecture. People made water PSA posters. And so this whole idea of being able to integrate these really awesome lectures and all this outreach to the students, I don't know, it's just something that I hope to take with me and push at whatever university I end up at, because this collaboration between science and the community is something that, you know, the university should be connected to the community, and in so many places it's not.
Were you about to ask something, Scott? You looked like you were leaning and you were.
I mean, not anything specific. I was just almost going to say you guys are doing a really great job with this. This is all. I mean, I think this is exactly kind of what we wanted to have. So you're our first ones that we've recorded. So.
Well, you know, I'm actually curious. Like, so tell me a little bit about the Dell, because you said something that I thought was interesting, and I felt the same way actually about my own college. When you said earlier, like, you know, when we applied or we did it years ago, we don't think we would have gotten in or gotten as far this most recent year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I always joke, it's like I look at, I went to Colgate University, and I always look at, like, the admission stats and, you know, where they're at, and I'm like, there's no freaking way I would have gotten into my own college, like, 10 years later, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, whatever it was that you experienced in the first Dell Social Innovation Challenge, you know, that set you up to succeed in the most recent one, and that will lead you, you know, wherever it leads you, and open up the doors and amazing opportunities. So what would you say are, like, some of the most important things that you guys got out of the Dell Social Innovation Challenge experience?
Well, I'll speak in contrast, and then Catherine probably has more to add. Since I entered the one in 2007, we pretty much wrote up a 30-page document that was all text. I don't even know if we had any figures in it whatsoever. Somewhat outline form and somewhat prose. It was horrendous. I mean, we had decent ideas, but we had no idea of the scope that we should define. And I say this all looking back. Like, we spent a lot of time, the two other people I worked with, we spent a lot of time trying to put it together. We were really proud of it. And we got far. Like, we got to present, you know, a PowerPoint presentation about what we wanted to do in the final round. But that was where we saw people who had already been putting their idea into practice, who had already developed sort of the marketing side materials, not like fully fleshed out like a marketing team would do, but we had nothing to market our idea. I think one thing that's really nice about the Dell Social Innovation Competition now that was new last year is they really lay out, like, here are some questions you should answer, here are some ways you should present it, that really pull you away from what is comfortable, which is a nice long report, but totally ineffective at communicating your mission, your outcomes, your milestones in a soundbite sort of way that's also not sacrificing the truth of what you want to do. And so I think by getting to the final round that last, or not the final round, I don't know quite where, but we got to the presentation round and seeing other people just how much better they were than us, that was good shaming of like, oh, this is what real people trying to do social innovation look like. I think, the other thing that I wouldn't take any credit for, but it's just been the infrastructure built into the competition is fantastic. And it's the kind of infrastructure that I think anyone could build into any idea. It doesn't matter if you're trying to sell your research or if you're trying to sell a product or if you're trying to sell a social idea. Like the breakdown of what's important, what do people want to know, and how are you going to explain how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. Those are invaluable skills for me personally, and I think also for the people seeing ideas and evaluating them themselves. It gives you a much better, or gives us, I think, a much better idea of when we decide what organizations we might want to volunteer with or support. Having been on this side of it, I think we can be hopefully constructively critical of shortcomings in an organization if we were to serve on a board, for instance, or constructive volunteers and how can an organization improve. I think going through this process gave us more insight into what a successful organization looks like.
Great.
And the roadmap to success, I think when we went into it, both of us were like, we cannot write 12 pages of text. Like that was one thing that we both agreed on. And so we ended up, every page is basically a visual of what we're trying to convey with little text on it. And I don't know, I'm pretty proud of what we put together considering it was our first time trying to do it, and I think it came together as a really cohesive document, and I think moving forward, I would definitely pull from that in future things that I try to apply for in how to describe, like Ellison said, scaling it up, like that was a big question that we had to answer in our timeline. Day 1, what are we going to do? The money day, year 5, where do we picture ourselves to be? Those were really difficult questions that we spent a lot of time talking about, even though it ends up being, one little picture in our roadmap. Those were hours of discussions to figure out not only what are we thinking about and how to depict it in little text, so that if someone is, because we've also put in research proposals and we know that people kind of skim them, so if someone's going to skim our roadmap, how best can we convey all this information with them just kind of flipping through a packet? And so, this whole pictorial way of doing it was how we came up with, or trying to be more visual than text. And that was challenging. But I think, at least I'm really proud of what we put together. I think it was the best that we could do with the time that we had, definitely. And it was a lot of fun making the video.
Yeah. Had you guys had to make a video before for a project?
So it was really great timing because I was in a documentary film class at the time, and so I had all access to Final Cut and camera.
Amazing.
So we taped ourselves at some of the outreach that we do, and then we did voiceover for it. It was really cool. So it was like it was the first thing I ever put together in a video, and I was like, really proud.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. And especially, you had said, way earlier that, what you did as a kid was art and science together. And so it seems like the Dell Challenge is just that, and allows you to use this art side of you, even though it's just video and you've never done it before. It's still a creative thing, and also to do it about something that you're also passionate about on the science side that's going to make an impact. It's really cool. So anyways, I'm looking at our time here, and we've been on this for about 30, and I don't want to take, I don't want to take all the time up from you guys. Rich, what do you think? Do you have any other kind of...
Do you mind if we try to talk for a few more minutes? Do you guys have the time, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I do too.
5, 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
There's a couple more questions I kind of wanted to run through if you guys are okay with 10 more minutes.
Sure. Sure.
cool.
Oh, cool. So I'm curious, like, what if you had to like summarize your Dell Social Innovation Challenge experience, and you could only use like single words, what would you use? I'm just playing here. I'm just
That
curious.
no, that's good.
You know, like I'm just like, what would it? How would you describe it if you couldn't like sit here for 40 minutes and like tell us all the aspects of it? Like if you had to say it was this, this, and this, what would you say?
It was surprising.
I would say challenging.
What was surprising about it?
I mean, I think, first surprise is that we got as far as we did.
Yeah.
Big surprise. Um, Second surprise being that I didn't actually feel as confident at the start that we'd be able to answer all the questions that they lay out in their roadmap guidelines. Answering questions like, what are you going to do in year 5? Is, for me at least, is just not something I'm very comfortable with. Like predicting the future. How do I know the future? I have no idea what's going to happen then. I don't even want to say. They really encourage you to put down numbers. Like you'll see on our page, we say we're going to impact 10,000 children by year 5.
Yeah.
That to me has been reasons why I've criticized projects in the past. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way you know how many kids you're going to reach. Like, what if nobody wants to listen to you? But I think thinking about the reasons why I didn't think those were good metrics made me think more critically about our own idea and made it a lot better. So I found like my general cynicism about social good projects wane, which was surprising. Again, maybe I shouldn't reveal I have such a bad attitude about some projects, but I have in the past, and I feel like that was surprising. And I think the other thing that was surprising is in some ways how, maybe not surprising, but how easy it is to put something together when you're working with someone who is as passionate about the same thing as you. I think in a lot of experiences working with other people,
Has been frustrating.
yeah, well, even if you are passionate about the same things, getting to a point where you can answer the same questions with roughly the same answer, and if you're not, then come to an agreement on, okay, well, I'm okay with this, but don't mind if this is different. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, but that's surprising. I mean, group work for me has never really been my strong point or something I necessarily love. Working with Catherine is a lot more fulfilling than working with most people.
And then I think, Alyssa was saying, like, projecting out, she was really good at doing kind of the, more of the, how are we going to pay for this? Because she's on a lot of different co-op boards, and so she had that background to bring. And then I was like, I could project it out. That'll be fine. I'll stay with you. So we were able to kind of sketch that out separately and then run it by each other. And then for me, looking at what she planned with an editing eye was easier for me to than developing it. And the same thing with her. I kind of sketched out where we would be 5-10 years, and she was like, okay, well, we can scale this back, and I think it would then reach where we'd be at. But for her, maybe coming up with that was more difficult. Where I could come up with it, and I love the fact that we worked together really well. That she was fine being like, absolutely not. That's kind of crazy. Let's think about this a little differently, and be able to edit each other instead of both of us having to come up with everything and then only having one person edit. I think we worked really well together.
So do you think it made you guys almost a better team as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've worked on things together before, but this was something that definitely took a lot more
decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, decisions is what breaks down a group, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you only have to make 5 decisions, then maybe you can fight 5 times with your group members. But if you're going to make, 1,000 decisions, you really have to know how to scale back what it is you want and prioritize what the group needs, or in this case, what our team needs. I think those are invaluable skills.
And then as you get closer, every time we move forward, we're both like, hey, well, are you still in with this? And, we're kind of making sure that as we move forward, we're like, right, I'm kind of still in. Are you kind of still in? Kind of thing, checking back in and making sure that it was something that we both were still still passionate about, and still, as we move forward, we're still okay with the fact that we were moving forward as far as we were. And so, I think, just that fact, being able to kind of be honest with each other was really helpful, and just made it really well together.
I've thought of another word that I'm just going to jump, because I think it's really important if there's like one message that maybe your side of things could get out there that, Catherine's already alluded to, and I'd say she's not alone. Like, wanting to be an artist and a scientist has been both of our dreams since we were little, and there's just no way as a researcher to figure out how to incorporate art into your work except on the side.
Yeah.
This opportunity does that. You have to think visually about how you're going to present information, and we can design activities, and we have designed science-based activities where you learn fundamental science concepts through an art activity, and that's not just awesome for them, it's just awesome for us, because I think both of us, we work really hard and spend most of our time doing science. Like Catherine said, she did art when she was young. Same for me. I entered college and tried to major in fine arts. It's just not possible to do that and do the science that I wanted to do at the same time. And giving that up is
hard.
one thing that's like, feels like a part of you is just dying and withering off the longer you go through a PhD that's not art-based at all. So getting through this, I think, for both of us is sort of like a breath of fresh air for the creative side. And there's no reason that has to be, axed out of any scientific pursuit. So if there's like one message I feel like should come out of this, is more competition should involve both creative and scientific thinking, because there isn't, in my mind, there are far more scientists who have artistic sides, and there are far more artists that think scientifically than I would say we're led to believe as like artists think like this and scientists think like this. And therefore you don't have a creative bone in your body if you're a scientist, or you don't have a scientific bone in your body if you're an artist.
And I think that's one of the reasons why both of us also harp on communication, because, communication is also an art form, and people don't expect very much of us when we're engineers to get up and present ourselves, or, to even be able to speak in coherent sentences or with passion. And so, that base of our field is something that we're just like, that's not us, and that shouldn't be what defines what you see as.
What do you think is like the most? And then we'll let you guys escape in a second here. But like, what do you think is the most, for either individually and then also as a team? What's the most important thing that you've taken away from the Dell Social Innovation Challenge?
Well, I think it's that we have seen an impact. We see kids come back to the activities, like maybe you didn't get this history, but the off-road science activities that we do in middle schools were actually started by Catherine's Science and Engineering Club that she started at a local middle school, and students come back. And the same thing is true at the Hot Science School Talks lectures that she mentioned, where we do pre-lecture activities. Students come back and they remember what we did before, and they get really excited about what we're going to do next. So I think one takeaway was like, oh wow, it actually worked. All the things we said we want to see as an outcome, and you ask us like, what would our perfect world look like, or what would we do with this money? I think we can say with more confidence, we would do these things, and we expect these outcomes because we've now seen them. That wouldn't be possible if we, one, weren't trying for that grant, and two, didn't earn the grant in order to do what we're doing, currently this year.
Yeah, we'd have to spend back a lot. Last year, I think both of us paid a little bit out of pocket for a lot of the stuff that we do, just because we like doing it. And so this year, with having the funds to do it, we're able to scale up, make sure that the Hot Science School Talks that we do have a lot of funding behind them, that the science clubs we've now expanded to another school have the funding behind them. We can pull in more people to help us. We're not scrambling, just the two of us. And so it's just been it's just nice to just have the support behind you to be like, oh yeah, if we want to do something with motors, we can buy motors. Like, we had a small grant before for science clubs that purchased a lot of materials, but then after that, it was, just kind of pulling out of a box, trying to figure it out. Like, collect cardboard, because everything will have cardboard and sheets. And so it's nice to have that freedom to be like, we could do really cool activities, and if we need to buy something for it, it's not an issue. I think the other side is also great because we can also do activities on a budget with straws and marshmallows and cardboard. We've been pretty successful at that.
Very cool. Well, thank you guys, both Ellison and Catherine. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's early. It's a Friday morning. I can't thank you guys enough for sharing an hour with us.
Thanks for talking with us. It was a lot of fun.
No, and just one last thing, if you can leave us with, what would you say to someone who's thinking about applying and maybe doesn't feel that they have the best idea or they're not some crazy cool social innovator with a big concept? Like, what would you say to those people who, are thinking about applying and don't know if they will or not?
Just go for it. I mean, just use the prompts to define your project more for yourself, if nothing else. Because if you define it for yourself, you'll get closer each time in making it a reality.
Yeah, I would say trust that your passion for your idea is enough to carry you through, but don't be stymied by criticism. An idea isn't perfect in your mind, and you're going to see it become better if you pursue it than if you think, well, it's a good idea, but nobody's going to pick it up the way it is now. Well, probably not, because it hasn't been developed. So go out there and develop it.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you both so much.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you guys. Yeah, hopefully we'll talk again someday, Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, when we're social innovators ruling the world.
Yeah, totally.
Making the world a better place. Social innovator. We're not looking to rule the world. We're looking to make it a
Yeah.
We do need to work on our language. Social innovators, a better place.